Right there. Look at that right there. Look at that head shake, man. Oh, man. That's what we came up here for.
Okay, live in 3, 2, 1.
All right, we're red hot. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you, Jer.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on. This is awesome.
Dan, why don't you just give us a little bit of a background on who you are, what you do, and then we'll kick off the conversation.
Yeah, Dan Quinn. I work for Rapala, VMC, Sufix, Crush City, Williamson, Storm, 13, all the great brands under the Normark umbrella. And I manage the pro staff, work with media partners like yourself, and also do the director for R&D. So I do a lot of the ears to the ground and picking up on trends maybe before they're popular and mainstream, and bring a lot of that intel and information back to the product development team. So yeah, gotta get out, travel around, fish with some of the best fishermen in the world for all sorts of different species, and it's a pretty cool job. I can't lie.
Yeah, it's like the best job in the world is really what it is. Yeah.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. And then those relationships, of course, lead Dan into big trophy whitetail deer situations, and yeah, just fun
perks,
factor. Yeah. So, no, it's fantastic, and obviously Rapala is one of the premier brands in the entire fishing world. But obviously, there's a lot of brands under that umbrella. Can you walk through how a lure or just a product in general comes to market, like the timeline, where the ideas come from, and all the steps that go along to getting it on a shelf for an angler to grab?
Sure. Yeah. In a picture perfect world, that we'd come out with an idea at this time, and it would plug and play perfectly into the whole cycle. But it's not real life. So we'll kind of introduce products in the spring to our sales reps and do sales meetings, and then they're released to the public at ICAST, and then typically in stores in December. That's kind of the process. But on the front side of it, when it comes to an idea, sometimes they come from me, sometimes from the pro staff, yourself or Al or any of the guys. We bring it to the table, see how it ranks priority-wise, if it's going to be something we need to get on right now, or if it's okay to a year or two out. But we have a 5-year plan, so we have the next 5 years kind of mapped out right now. But that is obviously, it's fluid. So as ideas come and trends happen, we want to get ahead of them. Long story short, we'll get prototypes, and basically we'll do some internal testing, and then we'll, a lot of times we've sent projects to you guys to test, and send them to the most appropriate people on our pro staff or in our network, or kind of our inner circle. Test it out, see what works, what doesn't work, go back. We need to change this, we need a longer hook, we need more skirt material, less skirt material, whatever it may be, and then do another round of prototypes. So it varies. In a perfect world, maybe a year, but a lot of times it's 2 years. The new topwater bait that we'll have this year was a lot. It was probably 3 years of development. Things need to be right, and especially being Rapala. When we introduce a lure, we want people to catch fish with it, and it needs to. So there's a high level of expectations there, and we need to make sure that we're delivering that. So.
Well, and you guys do, and I'll just say, having been part of some of this with you as well, like the attention to detail is really remarkable. It's not, you look at it and say, oh, that's a jig, but there is thought into everything.
There truly is, and that's kind of the fun part of my job, is getting to fish quite a bit and understanding those little nuances for fishing with yourself or Jacob Wheeler or Al, whoever it is, to understand like the importance of the line angle or, the bite of the hook, and so when we bring the product to market, it's as good as we can get it, and it's going to help people catch more fish. That's truly the goal of every single project. It's fun. I love that detail side of things.
Yeah, well, you're good at it too, so it's pretty fun. So the VMC line, that's of course just exploded in the last decade, like unbelievable. But let's switch gears a little bit to Rapala. And there's obviously a whole host of hard baits in there, and one of the famous Rapala baits is the DT series, which I feel like up here does not necessarily get the attention from bass guys as it really deserves, because it is such an amazingly effective tool.
It is. It absolutely is. As far as bass in the Midwest and Minnesota, and because we have so much grass cranking grass is fun. I mean, you get the DT line is so cool because the DT4 goes to 4 feet, and it makes it so simple. Wherever your grass is topping out at, whatever it is, 6, 8, 10, 12 feet, getting that bait to just tick the tops of the grass. I mean, it's an incredibly effective tool, and it's a technology now showing us with forward facing. You'll see the baits up on top of the grass some days. That's a day you put the jigs down and pick the crankbaits up because the fish are up high and they're wanting to eat bait, and it works.
Walk through your setup that you're using for throwing a DT and a weed lake.
So my basic setup is I like a rod that if there isn't grass, like a lot more of a moderate action, so it really loads up. But you want a little bit more backbone for grass because you're going to be snapping it out. But I like 12-pound fluorocarbon bait casting setup, depending if it's a DT6 or a 10, but a 7.5 foot rod, still with a moderate action, but a little more backbone, and you just throw it out, reel it down. As soon as you hit the weeds, you can either snap it and just keep finding that speed where you don't want to bury it in there, but when you snap it out of the weeds, that just triggers the fish to bite. It gets a reaction bite, and you're covering so much water with the crankbait. I mean, jigs and Texas rigs obviously have their place and they work, but man, those days, especially if you get some clouds or rain or some wind where the fish they're up and moving around, the water's broken up a little bit more, they're chewing. There's nothing better than throwing a crankbait.
Well, it's just so fun. I mean, you just feel it working on your rod, and then it's just poof. Airball. And I think, people who fish bass for the most part in the summer, I mean, obviously people do different things, but it's a, like you said, it's a Texas rig, it's a jig, it's a Tokyo rig. Like for the most part, it's bottom fishing for bass in the summer. And when the bite is tough, like so many times you're cast your jig out, it's falling, boom, you get bit on the fall. It's falling for 2 seconds, right? Like low, they're up higher, right? And that, to me, to your point, is when that shines.
100%. Yeah, and it's so versatile that you can throw it around the grass. You can throw crankbaits through wood. I mean, they're really good around cover. With that bill angled down, it's protecting the hook. So there's a way to fish it around wood. But then if you get some hard bottom or whatever, you can grind it in the hard bottom. It's a very versatile lure, and it catches everything. Bass, pike, walleyes, muskies, crappies. I mean, it's just a fun bait to throw.
It is. Yeah, I think that's what most people traditionally think of as crankbaits, is grinding bottom, making contact with cover, whether it's the bottom or weeds or wood. And that is when you get a lot of the strikes. And I wish we had a lot more rock cover up here in the North Country. I mean, when you find a cool, clean rock spot on a lake that's loaded with largies, like that's a super secret honey hole where you can bust out a DT16 or DT20 and just grind on rock and boom, boom.
Oh, it is. And as things have changed in new lures and trends, this and that, when you can see the fish a little more and target individual fish, yeah, it works. But there's a lot of times when they're on the bottom and in burning a crankbait, throw it and reel it as fast as you can. I never leave a hard bottom spot without doing that. And I've caught lots and lots and lots of fish doing it. There's just you cannot replace that, just burning a crankbait, getting them to react. There's nothing else that works like that. There's a lot of days you have to do it or you're leaving fish.
Sure, that's super fun. It's amazing how in summer speed can totally be the deal where you get caught up in like fishing's tough, slow down, and like so many times total opposite, way better.
It's amazing. I know, like a lot of the bass guys, like on Lake Oneida in New York, in 25 feet of water, they're throwing a DT10, burning it as fast as they can. This was quite a few years ago, but a few of the guys all got on this same technique, burning a crankbait halfway down on the water column in open water.
It's just crazy.
Like now it would be a different animal with forward facing, but
sure.
At the time it was like, holy cow, this is, you're not even close to the bottom.
Yeah.
So, yeah, a very versatile bait. And yeah, so crankbaits are here. They've always been here and they'll always be catching fish. So
yeah, they're great. They're overlooked. So you should definitely try some crankbaits this summer if you're not throwing cranks. They're super, super fun to fish with. So Dan, you're from the Brainerd area where we're at right now, but now you're a Wisconsin resident officially now. So you got a continuous bass season over there, which is great. But like the area we're in, the area you're in, there's a ton of lakes and water. Like, how are you hunting down largemouth lakes over in Wisconsin.
So it is cool, and when I first moved, it was quite a shock to me growing up around here. You're fishing grass. I mean, that's what you do around this part of the state. And over there, there's much less. I mean, there are certainly grass lakes, but there's a lot of lakes without it, and they had shad and rock. So it was a fun process to kind of learn. It's almost like fishing for different species, but yeah, there's a lot over there. They've got the St. Croix River, the Mississippi River, and then a ton of lakes. Some of the lakes are just loaded with wood and some rock, just some real dirty water. Then some with milfoil and, clear water, and kind of similar to the Brainerd area. But I don't know. It depends, I guess, on what time of the year and this and that. But they definitely, there's some really good fishing. There's some big ones down there. And we don't have shad over there except in the St. Croix and the Mississippi. So it's kind of the same forage, a lot of bluegills and minnows and crawfish. But yeah, fishing's really good over there.
Yeah, you always are calling with hot reports from over in Wisconsin there, which is pretty sweet. Yeah,
well, it's fun to have all those different types of fisheries too, to test all these different products we're always coming out with and exploring, seeing this worked, this didn't work, and comparing notes with some other guys. And yeah, it's cool. It's very cool.
Yeah,
we've kind of got a little bit of the traditional Minnesota fishing, but almost a lot of places that set up more like the southern reservoirs and with lacking some of the current, but we got the rivers. So yeah, it's a great place to test a bunch of different stuff.
Yeah, the river thing is super cool down there. We've got our buddy Joe down there who's always pounding on them.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
On pool too. Yep.
Yeah, which is an amazing walleye fishery. But the St. Croix too, a few years ago, we went down there, and this is circling back to another one of Rapala's amazing baits. We were jig and wrap fishing, and that is unbelievable. So the St. Croix River has all kinds of different species in it, obviously, but this is to the jig and wrap, and what an amazing fish catching bait that is. And give us the story from Rapala's point of view on the development of obviously it was developed way before your time, but in terms of it developing in the marketplace.
Yeah, that's got to be one of the coolest stories of any lure in the history of fishing, is the story of the jig and wrap. And when it came around over 50 years ago as an ice fishing lure in Finland, and it's had applications obviously in the U.S., but it's been a tried and true ice fishing lure for all those years. Kind of was, it was what it was, and that's where it lived. Until, basically Al, right, like however many years ago that was, 10, 15 years ago, started experimenting with it in open water, snapping it, and it quickly rose to become one of the most amazing open water walleye lures of all time. Casting and kind of slow trolling, 3/4 of a mile an hour, snapping it, and the amount of walleyes it caught doing that, tournaments it won, it was unbelievable. It became our number one selling hardbait lure in the entire Rapala lineup with that, because you've got the entire ice fishing dynamic of that lure, now the entire open water dynamic for the walleye market. It was quietly being used out west as a bass fishing lure in the wintertime, fishing suspended fish vertically. It's just wild what that lure has done up to that point. And now what's even cooler is how that lure has become one of the absolute best lures with forward-facing sonar on top of it all. So one of the oldest, most iconic classic Rapala lures is now one of the most relevant with the latest and greatest technology. For getting, because it falls so fast and you can snap it, and it's got action at depth with the horizontal action. It's just other lures don't have that, and it gets fish to react. What Dewey does on Lake Oahe and down 50 feet of water above trees and watching the fish react, like they come unglued and they eat it.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's obviously a great walleye bait, but if you fish for bluegills or crappies,
absolutely,
it's really, really, really good, right?
Oh my gosh.
And
yeah.
if you like catching big mouth buffalo, it's a really good bait too.
Oh, absolutely. The buffalo bite we got on that day was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah, we caught everything, carp and suckers and smallmouth and walleyes and, oh my gosh, crappies. It was awesome.
Yeah, it is unbelievably versatile. And so that's kind of cool that, it's not just, we think of it a lot of times as a walleye bait, a panfish bait, but it's a great smallmouth bait. How are bass guys using this in the South?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
More in the wintertime when there a lot of traditional fishings with a spoon,
Sure.
just a basic half-ounce silver jigging spoon. But what guys are figuring out is that horizontal action at depth. So many baits lose their action at 20 feet or any deeper. They're just going up and down. But the jig and wrap with that tail fin and the pull point being in the middle, it's dancing around. So it's got so much more action that a lot of days. I know Jacob Wheeler, I think, he caught almost all of his fish one day in a Bassmaster Classic with a jig and wrap, fishing vertically around standing timber. I mean, it's really cool. Like, there just aren't many lures that have that much application to so many different scenarios and types of fish.
Yeah, and it's just super, super versatile. Do you do anything, or do you see guys doing anything with the hook on the jig and wrap, or are you seeing a lot of guys upsize or putting the bladed treble on there, or most guys fishing it standard?
I would say day in and out, most people probably just fish it out of the package, but certainly adding a little bit bigger hook, especially that bladed hybrid treble, to see what that bait looks like underwater with the bladed treble on it is pretty cool. And it's proven itself. It definitely gets a lot of bites. Yeah, and sometimes for ice fishing, guys will clip the nose hook just so it doesn't get hung up on the edge of the ice or things like that. But you can definitely take one out of the pack and put a snap swivel on, or put a swivel up your line, whatever. Just because if you're casting it much, it'll spin a ton.
Yeah.
So helping out with the spinning with the swivel at some part in the equation there helps out a lot. But oh man, yeah, you just got to fish. A lot of people are just still a little hesitant. I feel like there's still a lot of people that don't understand the magic of a jigging wrap. So we're just going to keep on telling people, because it's fun when someone sees the magic of a jigging wrap. They are just totally floored by it. They cannot believe it.
Can't believe it. Yeah,
No.
It's just unbelievable. It really is an unbelievable bait. You hit on something with the snap swivel, which I know you do. So I've always, tied a swivel, 2 feet above the bait. But the bummer with that is like a lot of times you do kind of want a longer leader, but when you put a snap further up, it gets to be a real pain then to cast, right?
Sure.
You're kind of doing that weird lobbing deal. So you're a snap swivel guy with the jig and wrap.
I do. I kind of do the braid to a fluorocarbon leader, like a traditional one. And instead of using a swivel, I'm just tying a knot there and then putting a snap swivel on the bottom. So it's easy to swap them out, different colors, different sizes, and then you've got the swivel built in. It works. It works for me. And it's funny that, dealing with a lot of different guys from around the country, forever, we up here, walleye fishing, would always put the swivel up the line, for whether it's mono to mono or braid to fluoro, whatever you prefer. But when I kind of introduced this to the Bass Pro staff and told us, because you got to try it, just play around with it, all of them, without any direction, went to a snap swivel. And it just, I don't know, just kind of how their brains work.
Sure.
With that. And I thought, makes sense. So that's, yeah, I've fished it like that, but teach their own.
Yeah, it clearly works, and I definitely see the advantage for casting to, again, not have that, because if you've got a Albright or an FG, whatever your favorite knot is, you can just cast it way better without having that longer leader. So I know when I first started fishing it, I was pretty sold on using mono a lot more for it, and I've kind of shifted now to pretty much fishing braid with the fluorocarbon leader. Are you seeing a type of line preference are most people doing like the 10-pound braid fluorocarbon leader, or are they mono still a thing?
I would say, yeah, I'd say braid to a fluoro leader or mono is probably the preferred option by most guys. Mm-hmm. But I know the godfather of all, Al, loves the mono and says there's a time and place when that outperforms braid, and I have no doubt in my mind. But as far as the advancements in spinning reels with the drags and keeping your drag right, and if you upsize your hook too, and you like fishing with Dwayne Jelm on Lake Oahe, he's got his drag cranked down, and he's fishing braid, and he's just horsing them in. And he rarely, he wins walleye tournaments doing it. So teach their own. It's a personal preference. But I think just the advancements of braid and fluorocarbon, people have, become more comfortable tying that knot to it, or even if it's a swivel. But Yeah, braid has so many advantages. It lasts for so long in your reels, and I think that's definitely what I see. I'd say 90% of people doing.
Sure. While we're on the topic of braid, you obviously oversee a lot of the Sufix projects. So Sufix has ProMix braid. It's got 832. We've got Revolve. I mean, like, why do you have so many different kinds of braid?
It's a good question. A long story short, if you look at the braids that Sufix offers, 832 is kind of up here. It's become our flagship braid, and it's just tried and true. It's so good. It's got a strand of gore in it, which what the gore does is help repel water, keeps the water out of it, and it keeps that line real round. So it's really good casting. It's really good overall for everything. There's nothing wrong with 832 for any application.
Super versatile.
Super versatile, and it's premium. It really is. So that's there, and that'll always be there. 830. We've added some really cool colors. High vis has really become a big push for braid as far as watching your line, especially with spinning tackle. But then we've got the newest line is Revolve, and you'd mentioned Nano Braid as well. Revolve is actually a redo of Nano Braid. Nano Braid was in a we updated the color. We added another strand, so it's a 4-strand. Revolve is really geared towards spinning tackle. It's only offered in, I think, 4 through 14. It's downsized, it's micro diameter. So the purpose of that is just with the boom of spinning tackle and wanting to cast small baits further, like little hair jigs for smallmouth or small baits for crappies, whatever it is. And a thinner line is gonna, cut the water better. There's a lot of advantages, but it's really geared towards spinning tackle. And we got the rigidity of it set so it's not gonna get a lot of wind knots. If a line is too light and too supple, a lot of times you get wind knots or it wraps around your guides. So this is a real good balance. It's just the perfect line for your spinning rods. It has a much lower break strength because it is so much thinner, but it's more on par. But like that 8-pound Revolve is literally on 100% of Jacob Wheeler's spinning rods.
Amazing.
100%. The only line he uses. 8-pound Revolve. So that's a pretty big statement.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then if you go, so we've got 832 and Revolve, and then if you look at the other one, which is the ProMix, that is just a really good all-around braid as well, high shock strength, but it's a much lower price point. We took the gore out. So at the same, having 832 and Revolve, you also want to play to everyone's price points. If you don't need premium stuff, you're not that into it, we've got ProMix braid, and you will never have a problem with that stuff. And the other side of it is 832 with that gore. It does just sink just a little bit. So ProMix. ProMix is basically what Performance used to be.
Yep.
So ProMix doesn't have the gore, so it truly floats. So it helps if you're fishing frogs or different baits like that. But real high shock strength. I know for like musky fishing, you want real heavy duty braid, and that's the stuff for that.
Yeah, well, that was a really good explanation of it, and I think you hit it. That's when I look at my setup of line is like you said, the ProMix braid to me is like, it's just the ultimate musky line. You can backlash on a pounder and you're not going to break your line. Like that line has like the best shock strength ever. The same token, like a Revolve or a Nano, if you were, throwing a heavy bait and backlash like that line, this isn't a dig on the line. You just have to understand how it works. It doesn't have the same shock strength. You could put your thumb on the drag and like pull and straighten a hook. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But if you it was a sharp, so there's this give and take that happens with those different types of line, and it's super cool. And then he said the density of like 832, we fish a lot of jerk baits on spinning rods, and I love the density of that line. It's not as light as the other stuff where it's blowing around in the wind as much, and it still performs much better than Performance braid does for castability. So it's cool. Like, you should experiment with all these different lines because they really are specialized. And I think it's cool the way you guys have it. Like, when you're thinking about this, 832, middle of the road, great all-around versatile choice. You want to get specialized in a really finesse throwing light baits. Look at Revolve. You're going to throw big, heavy, meaty stuff. Pro Mix.
Yeah. And it helps to simplify it and help people understand the benefits and of each and which is going to suit you best. And if you just need one spool line for a couple rods, you're just pretty simple with it, Pro Mix is probably the choice, or 832, and you'd be good to go. Yeah.
The other cool thing you did with the Revolve, I noticed this year when I was spooling stuff up, is there's a marker in the middle of that one.
Yeah.
So that's kind of sweet.
That is. Yeah. I think everyone appreciates that because you always get it just not enough for another reel.
It's the
so
worst.
There's 100 yards, a break, and another 100. So put a little backing on, get 100 yards on, you're good to go. You're going to get 2 reels out of each spool. So I think that's been well received.
Very much so. I don't know how many, and I don't know why I just don't throw them away, but I've got like this massive collection over the years of like, there's enough line on here to do a third of a reel. Like, what am I going to do with this, right? Like,
that's right. Yeah, you got to give those to your buddy Ryan.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Oh, gosh. That's awesome. That's really great. So, looking at all the different markets around the country, obviously bass is king. I mean, it's the biggest market there is. How does the multi-species world play into Rapala, and where does, kind of the Midwest multi-species fishery fit into the marketplace?
I think at the end of the day, the multi-species mass market of people just getting out and going fishing, that's what drives the fishing business. That's what we cater to and always have as Rapala, especially in the Midwest, making baits that catch walleyes, that catch bass, that catch pike, and making lures that are just they're easy to fish with. They catch fish. That's been like the foundation of Rapala, and it always will be. In the last maybe 10 years or so, and it's been kind of an initiative of mine, just working with some of the high-end bass fishermen. I mean, we have the best bass fishing pro staff in fishing, period. And understanding what that market is and what it can be for us as Rapala, we've really put a lot of emphasis on that with the DTs, the PXR baits lately with the Maverick, the Jowler. There's certainly some cool ones coming that I'm really excited about, topwater baits and more bass-focused baits. And then obviously the Crush City lineup of plastics has been arguably the biggest launch in the history of fishing. And that's been very much geared towards bass, actually designing them with Jacob. It's been an amazing, fun process, a lot of hard work, but it's been very successful, and he's obviously just winning almost every tournament he fishes with it, him and Dustin. So yeah, it's been a big initiative to grow our business and presence in the South and cater to that bass market, because we have all the tools in place, but Rapala just being a very iconic Midwest brand, it's been fun to grow and embrace the Southern bass market. But all the while, we're still very focused on walleye and multi-species in the Midwest. I mean, that's our backyard. This is where we're at. So that's just trying to grow and make quality baits for all the different markets. It might be even with Blue Fox and Lure Jensen, we're working on salmon for Alaska or the Columbia River or the Great Lakes, stripers out east. It's kind of cool to have to play to all these different markets, but certainly the bass largemouth market in the South is a big one, and I've really enjoyed growing in that market and seeing it work and help win tournaments and help people catch more fish, and just seeing our brand be kind of a cool brand in the South for college bass fishing is a huge deal. And now it's fun to see all these college kids throwing Crush City baits and Mavericks in tournaments and having success with it. It's really cool. It's really rewarding.
The other thing that Rapala has done an awesome job at, that I would like to know how you can come up with this, because I know for sure that if you're going to try to sell, say, quick fish to salmon guys, like you have to have like a turquoise outline on the chartreuse stripes, but only 2 dots of orange, but you got to have the pink tail on the back. And if you don't have that little bit of white on the lip, like the bait's not going to work. So like, you know what I mean? Like
I do.
Guys can get so insanely hyper-focused on these specific color patterns, and obviously color does matter. Mm-hmm. Like how do you even sort or process that? How do these lists come up when we're like, okay, we're going to launch this bait? Here's the colors. Is it sales history? Is it angler input? Is it both?
It's both. Yeah, I'd say certainly you'd be foolish not to look at the sales history of, like, you know, if we're going to do a walleye bait, we're going to have Fire Tiger, you know, something like that. Like the tried and true Rapala colors, we always want to give credit where credit's due as far as the colors that work. They're you know, proven Rapala colors. But at the same time, it's kind of the fun part of my job is, hey, go over to these guys on Green Bay. Hey, what are some new rip and wrap colors we should explore with? Are you guys seeing anything change with that, with it, whatever it is, to get input from as many credible guys as possible, and then kind of line it all up and go through it and see if there's some commonalities amongst these guys. Oh yeah, we need more purples. You know, that's a consistent trend. Well, we're gonna look at that and add more purples into this upcoming bait. So it's definitely both. I think you need to pay attention. Always pay attention to sales data, but also listen to the guys that are on our staff and all the quality, credible fishermen out there that are, especially in today's day and age, when you're seeing the fish a lot more than we ever have. You're seeing, no, they're not biting purple today. They want gold. So you're throwing baits and they're reacting differently. It's hard to argue with it now, especially it's like trolling was, you know. Yeah. Guys that are trolling, Ross Robertson on Lake Erie, they want blue. They want this shade of blue. I mean, you want to talk about colors, that guy, because he's trolling baits, you know, the same bait.
Right.
This one keeps getting bit. And then it's always changing, you know, whether the clouds come in or it gets windier, dirtier water, whatever it is, it's always evolving. But there's trends that evolve, and you get these guys that have that much information to share with us. We're trying to come out with baits with the colors that are going to work today for people to go catch fish. So
yeah, and that Green Bay rip and wrap bite, that's like the classic example of, I know those guys are getting custom paint jobs on rip and wraps all the time because it is like color is like legit a big deal there. Same with, you know, trolling colors for the Great Lakes, like it matters. It
100% does. Yeah, you've got super clear water over there, and those walleyes are pressured and they're picky, and there is no questions asked. They get on certain colors, and yeah, each day is a different day. You got to have this assortment of them and try them, and hopefully you strike gold and put the right one on that day. But.
Oh man, yep. So I love fishing the rip and wrap, and we're gonna go probably do a little rip and wrap fishing here this weekend. And you know what really pisses me off, Dan, is that I've got this amazing collection of rip and wraps, and Hayes was in the other day and he was talking about the rip and wrap bite around here. He's like, oh, blue chrome, you know, you just got to throw blue chrome. I don't have a number 6 blue chrome rip and wrap in my possession. I was like, you got to be kidding me. I'm like,
the one color.
The one color. Like,
whatever color you throw, just throw that one. It's the one you don't have, of course. That is blue chrome, Dan, for whether you're walleye fishing or bass fishing in Tennessee or Minnesota, that color does shine.
Yeah.
Day in and day out.
Yep.
I'll get you some.
What are you seeing in tournament trends right now? Like I know there's a few different bass leagues that are popular. Where is like Rapala investing marketing dollars? How are these? I just am not that familiar with the whole professional bass, you know, culture and how things are shifting over there. What you're seeing? Yeah,
boy, it has changed a lot lately. In the last 3 years, I'd say. It's probably the biggest change in the history of bass fishing. I mean, it's pretty monumental, and it's all, you know, tied in with forward-facing sonar and just what you're able to see on the water now. What used to be a mystery, and you'd go fishing, you know, hoping the fish were here based on the wind's blowing on this point, whatever it is, and you fish through. If you don't catch them, great. If you don't, you don't. Well, now you can see the fish. I mean, it's far less fishing. It's more like, you know, throwing at fish, and what that has lent itself to, and it's a big reason why Crush City has been so successful is with the minnow baits. You know, shaking a minnow has become the term for it, and it's arguably the most effective way to catch a bass. Same with walleyes, a lot of fish, crappies. It's all kind of the similar process where you're seeing the fish, whether it's suspended or on the bottom, but you're able to present a bait and matching the jig head size with the size minnow profile with whatever they want, whether it's based on what they're actually eating or it just gets them to bite a real big one maybe, is your ability to get that minnow and you're able to see what type of fish it is. Like, oh, that's a drum, not casted. Oh, yep, there's like a 4 or 5 pound bass. And you can see which way it's swimming, and to make the right cast, get that bait at the right level, and then you start shaking your rod with the freeloader. And what that bait's doing is just rolling. And that rolling action of this bait with the flat sides, it just looks real. And it's kind of hovering almost in place, and you're just teasing the fish to come in and bite. And it's incredibly effective, but that has almost become like the go-to presentation to catch bass in the tournament world.
It's pretty wild. Like, you look at the entire catalog of Rapala, VMC, Lure Jensen, William, like, and it, well, to your credit, Crush City has just been killing it, but you're just selling a lot of jigs.
A lot of jigs and minnow
right
profiles. It's certainly other baits still catch fish, but when these guys, when he's on the line, they need to catch the biggest fish to win the tournament, to make a living. This is what they're all turning to. You know, most of the time. Certainly there's, Kyle Welcher just won a tournament with the Bronco Bug, flipping at bedding fish, but they were all on forward-facing sonar with the stump and seeing how the fish in dirty water. So you couldn't see the fish, but he spent 21 straight days bed fishing with forward-facing sonar and stumps preparing for that tournament.
Jeez.
And he blew it out of the water he set the all-time record. He won by like 45 pounds or something. So other baits have play, but they're all being, tied to this technology. And, love it or hate it, it's amazing what we learn and see with the different baits, but it's also brought more light on jerk baits. Jerk baits have been selling better than ever. They're a really cool tool with the suspending jerk bait like the Maverick or an X-Wrap, where you can play cat and mouse with the fish now. So yeah, it's changed a lot. It's changed a lot. There's a lot less searching, with crankbaits and swim baits where you're just searching, fishing, and you're more so just casting at individual fish at that higher level. But yeah, it's changing. It's evolving. I think it's happened relatively quick, and there's a lot to learn and understand. But on the flip side, some of the leagues are more wanting to embrace the traditional line of fishing, flipping and pitching and throwing buzz baits and chatterbaits and spinner baits and crankbaits and all that good stuff like the NPFL. They don't allow it. So you're not allowed to use forward-facing sonar in that. In the Bass Pro Tour, which is the Major League Fishing side, which Jacob and Ott and Dustin fish, they break the day into 3 periods, and the first period, one you choose, whichever period you'd like, you can turn your forward-facing sonar on, and then the other 2 you can't use it. So that's kind of a cool blend where you're certainly leveraging the latest, greatest technology and these new minnow baits and trans jerk baits, whatever it is, and certainly that period's very critical, and a lot of times, a lot of bodies of water you need to catch them with that. But then you have to go fishing more traditionally, flipping jigs and throwing frogs around, and so yeah, it's an interesting time though. It's happened so quick, I think there's a lot to learn, and we'll see where it all shakes out. But it's definitely been eye-opening, I guess, to put it lightly.
Yeah, I would say it is absolutely eye-opening, and it is just, you hit it right on the head. It has fundamentally changed fishing. Like, the unknown is now knowable, and the precision in which you can target fish right now is just on a completely different level, and you get this real-time feedback that you're able to just fine-tune presentations to be exactly what fish want. It's really removed so much mystery, and yeah, you're just so much more efficient in putting lures in front of fish all the time.
You are. And it's also been cool in lure development as far as diving depths, There's no more question. Does a DT10 hit 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 feet? No, it hits 11 or whatever it is, and how your line changes that dive curve. Yeah, it's been kind of fun to weave that into lure development and trends and directions. But, yeah, you can see what your lure's doing, in real time. So
yeah,
it's wild. But as far as like what we were talking about earlier, crankbait fishing in the grass, I do really like forward facing for that, because you can see exactly where your bait's just ticking, and making sure your bait's right in that zone. It's effective for helping you stay in the right strike zone too.
Yeah, and forecasting what this cast looks like. If I cast at this angle, oh, I'm going to be in a, there's a piece of coontail that's 3 feet higher than everything else here, but here it's a nice edge. You know what I mean? Your precision is.
It is.
Yeah. Even if you're not looking at fish.
Oh, 100%. And in the South, one of the biggest things is fishing brush piles. So a lot of them are man-made brush piles, and now you're just absolutely feathering that jerkbait or whatever bait. Like it's like you're drawing it. You could watch it on the screen. It's just you shake it right over so you don't get hung up, and it's pretty cool how you can present the bait so meticulously right there. I think the controversial element of it all, I think, is really when the fish are kind of floating around. That's really open. These pre-spawn bass, what people used to think they're, on break lines or this or that, but they're just kind of out floating around, and they're very, very vulnerable to a minnow at this point. But certainly they're getting wise to it too. So we'll see how it all plays out. But it's interesting.
Yeah, I would say too. I mean, that seems to be the biggest complaint that people have. I mean, there's obviously opinions across the spectrum on it, but is the fish that are living in open water, where many people just view this as a refuge from angling pressure, where once they're off cover or structure, they're kind of in the abyss and they're doing their thing and they're all good. And now, that's the easiest place to target, precisely target them. They get in cover, they're harder to find. They get on the shore, they lay on the bottom. Technology doesn't show you them nearly as well, but it shows you really good with FFS when they're in outer space.
It does. Yeah. And that's been, where the mooch minnow and the freeloader specifically have really, really shined. It's that.
So talk to us about what, so shaking a minnow. So can you go through describe yours or Wheeler's, or what jig, why that jig, what, the line you're using, the rod, all of that stuff for the technique.
Yeah, so basically we kind of break it into either the mooch minnow, which doesn't rock and roll as much. It's just got a very subtle tail action. It's a smaller bait. And then the freeloader is more the shaking with the flat sides and the straight tail. So it's not inhibited by anything. It's just perfect for doing that, as well as on a trailer for a spinner bait or a shatter bait. But long story short, I mean, you're going to want like a 6.5 to 7 foot rod for the smaller ones, like the mooch minnow. And basically, I mean, arguably the same rod, maybe a 7.2, like a medium action but you want a faster action. We have some rods that will be coming out this year that are specifically for it, that have a little bit more. They're just perfectly, to keep the fish buttoned up, but you also want to control your bait, shaking it. But both, I would say, you're going to use like an 8 to 10 pound braid, and then a 10 to 12 pound fluorocarbon. And you can tie a loop knot to get a little bit more roll out of it, but typically just tying a Palomar is, all you need. The hybrid head we have out right now has a spring on it, so it really holds a freeloader. But that jig's not going to work for the TPE material like the mooch minnow, the real stretchy material. But basically, if we look at a freeloader, you're going to tie a hybrid head on and thread that bait on there, and that's all it is. And what's going on with that jig is it's got a 60-degree line tie, which helps the bait roll more. A 90-degree inhibits a bit. So you throw it out, you let it sink down, and honestly, I fish it all the time blind. It's just a very natural way to fish, whether you try a crankbait or whatever, but you throw it out, and all you do, if you're watching it on forward-facing sonar, get it around the fish or the right depth, and you just shake it, and the bait it's unbelievable, but it almost
slowly reeling, just
very slowly reeling, but you're shaking it, and you can watch it just naturally. And when a fish is on, you always want to get it coming up. You never want to drop it. But yeah, you'll just see fish react, and it's the same thing for walleyes. I mean, it's arguably the same technique. But then on the flip side with the mooch minnow, the redline tungsten swim bait jig is it's the ultimate jig head. It's tungsten. It's a matte, gray finish, so it's just real subtle. It disappears in the water. It has a 90-degree line tie, but like I said, with the mooch, you can shake it, but it's not rolling. So you don't need that different line tie angle. but that's got a conical keeper on. I mean, if I'm going to fish with it, I'm going to put a little super glue on that, and you can go fishing with that all day long. You're going to catch walleyes and bass and everything on that bait. But a similar deal, you want to match the weight of the jig to the depth you're fishing, right? If you want, the deeper you want to fish it, the heavier the head. So, but like an 1/8 or a 3/16 are real common weights for both baits. A 3/16 hybrid head with a freeloader is kind of the go-to to keep it where you can keep it in their face for quite a while, and it sinks fast enough. That's a good all-around size. And we do have a jig that will kind of displace a lot of that coming, that I'm really excited about. We've spent a lot of time perfecting it. There's a lot of cool nuances with that jig that's going to really shine for that technique.
That's super cool. Yeah, you've been. Well, I've got a sneak peek at it. And it is really, really cool. Yeah, I think people are gonna love it. So, the weight of the jig is it does seem pretty important, because if you're really trying to hang that thing, you just don't want to be fishing too heavy. I mean, you are always kind of favoring a little bit lighter, unless obviously the fish are super deep. But for the most part, you're typically going lighter is better.
100%.
Yeah. For sure. So, well, that is definitely super, super cool on how that whole technique works. And what is going on with the BASS side of things? You mentioned the Bass Pro Tour and the MPFL. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Yep. So what's BASS got going on over there?
Yeah, I kind of got sidetracked. I forgot to bring it in Bass, but yeah, the Bassmaster Elite Series and the Opens, they can use forward facing the entire time when they're fishing. They limited their total screen size, the amount of inches, just can get to be a lot, having all these big screens. It obstructs your view, this and that. So they're trying to keep that under control. But yeah, the Bassmaster is, still a monster of a tournament organization. They have the various levels at the the clubs, that I grew up doing around here to get into potentially the nation tournament. And then the Bassmaster Opens, and then that, if you qualify, there's 2 divisions, 4 tournaments in each. If you top 50 from each go into the elite qualifiers, and then they are joined by the current elite guys, and then they all fish in that, and then the top guys from that advance into the elites for the following year. So yeah, they're actually on Lake Fork right now, and our good buddy Seth Fighter was catching some huge ones this morning. So
oh, cool.
Pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, good for Seth. I'm glad to see Seth out there catching big ones. That's pretty sweet. The one thing we didn't really talk about was really been focused on largemouth, and the one thing is smallmouth have obviously become a big deal as the tournaments have started to come north. And how big do you see the smallmouth market in the bass world?
It's significant for sure. Yeah, and what's interesting. They're more widespread than I ever thought growing up. You go down and fish with Ott in Tennessee, and we're catching tons of smallmouth. They're a little bit more specialized up here, but they're almost a different species down there. But the northern smallmouth, I mean, with the Great Lakes and all the tournaments they've been having on the St. Lawrence River, it's unbelievable. I mean, the smallmouth fishing just seems to get better and better, right? Even in our backyard here with Mille Lacs, and yeah, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. And that's another fishery where you can, throw the mooch minnow or the freeloader and drop shots, obviously. But my favorite way to catch them is with topwaters. And there's nothing better than that. But yeah, that's a big market. We got all the Great Lakes that are full of them. And they just, I don't know whether it's the extended growing season. I know we've talked about it a lot and with Al, but smallmouth fishing is better than it's ever been right now.
Yeah, they just keep showing up. They seem like they show up in new places or places they were at, but no numbers. But now it's like there's just amazing good smallmouth fishing happening everywhere in the upper Midwest. It's really good.
Yeah, and I don't know I don't think there is a person that doesn't like catching smallmouth.
Yeah,
I mean, they're kind of a cool fish. They're different than largemouth. They're almost more like a walleye, but they bite topwater baits.
Oh, they're super curious. Yeah. They love eating Clown, Pink, and Hothead X-Wrap.
Oh my! I was just gonna say that. Yeah.
Well, cool, Dan. I really appreciate you coming up here. And anybody who's listening, if you're looking for free Rapalas, Dan is the guy to get you free Rapalas. So can you throw out your cell phone number, Dan, so folks can call and get some free Rapalas here? So
I forgot it.
Yeah. So we always like doing that to Dan. In fact, our buddy Ryan one time just opened Dan's tackle box and started giving Rapalas to people in the parking lot because Dan gets them for free.
Yeah, he did do that. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, anyway, actually, in all seriousness, before we leave, got you and your buddy Jake up there on one of those frescoes. So if people haven't seen this, these are refreshable photo tiles. It's a magnet, and the magnets are pretty cheap to replace, and it's just a tile board with an adhesive you stick on the wall. So it's pretty fun. I know Dan, Megan, your wife is going to love this. Every guest who's been on is just so stoked because they know their wives are going to love having those fish pictures in the
Oh, right.
house.
The more the merrier. Just like deer heads.
Yeah, exactly.
Wives love them.
Yes, exactly. So anyway, if you're watching this on television, you can check out the Angling Edge Buzz online on our YouTube channel or listen to this wherever you hear podcasts. Thanks a bunch for watching.